G'day, hi and welcome. All right. Okay, let's get this show on the roof. Not too bad. About 10:30. Almost. Yeah. Listen, it's like plus 6, 7 out there right now. It's going to turn cold tomorrow, but at least I'm able to turn the heat off in here. I only got that on 5 degrees. It's already 17 degrees and 32% humidity in here. Hooked up the water. So it's ready to go whenever it's ready to go. Reset my hot water tank, so I'll take my shower this afternoon. All that. So yeah, okay. So I guess I'll just jump right into it. Things are coming along. I guess this will be day 10. So one more tomorrow, guys, will be 12 days. So if we look at the destruction in June in 12 days, which was pretty much all aimed at Israel, I think there was a couple of they fired a few rockets at Iraq or whatever. Plot thickens, of course, but now it's like what 15 different countries or whatever it is, 30. Like Iran is like, again, guys, they're not going scorched earth. I know people think they are. They're not going hard and heavy. They're pacing themselves. They'll be able to do this for at least a year to 2 years, right? So a year to 2 years, even if they were to lose the war in a year to 2 years, there will be nothing. There will not be a building left standing in the Middle East if they keep going on this long. But revisements. Okay, so these are the big things. Now, if this is true again, because neither side is going to, it's the fog of war or war lies means the same thing. Neither side is going to tell you the truth for several reasons, unless it's actually something they can prove 100% and it's in their favor, right? So the Americans are not going to tell you the actual body count of American soldiers, which on the grapevine, if it's as high as they say, you just lost 13,500 guys. If it's as low as they say, you lost 7. But now it's like I think they confirmed another 40 for sure. You know what I mean? So at this rate, if you're losing say 80 people a week, that is an atrocity that like it'd be very politically disastrous, right? Desert Storm, stuff like that. That's probably I mean, like Iraq and Afghanistan, you lost about like the war on terror, you lost about 7,000 people, right? And it was below the threshold of people really freaking out. Why? Because people were coming back here. They really didn't see the war. They just got the updates, and at the time, the social media wasn't enough to really tell you what was going on there. You don't really get the full picture of Iraq and Afghanistan till about 2010, 2011, when the Iraqi veterans were starting to tell you that, no, we were there to protect you. We weren't there for the women and children of democracy and, protecting, the United States. We were there basically to protect the opium fields, the oil rigs. You know what I mean? We were there for corporations and the CIA and shit like that, and of course Israel, right? Most people couldn't come to the terms that these wars were fought for Israel, right? Some people could. Now people could just say whatever they want because the normies are now saying what we've been saying for since forever and a day. Uh, I was off the Israel train probably 2014. In 2010, when I started doing geopolitics on my old YouTube channel, I was still kind of, not, I was still in the ether of, okay, I can see there's, bad blood. That I knew my whole life that, okay, well, it's the Middle East, they all hate each other or whatever. But you would believe something, well, they keep, these Palestinians keep attacking the Israelis, and it was believable because, again, these people hate each other forever, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, I can understand it. And then of course all the war on terror stuff from 2001, most people were still on that the Muslim terrorists are everywhere and stuff like that. They are, but but that they're just there because they George Bush, they hate us because of our freedoms. No, they hate you because you bombed them. That's why. So most people now are starting to understand that this war, because of the way Trump did it, like he's doing exactly what George Bush did. It's just he wanted to one up George Bush, and the Bush administration, like one thing they did is they don't say the quiet part out loud. Don't tell people we're doing this for Israel. The odd general would slip, but it wasn't a daily occurrence, and they had their narrative carved out years in advance of why they had to take out Saddam, why they had to, because he was such a horrible dictator, which is true, sure. He was probably one of the scariest dictators that ever existed, next to Genghis Khan. Like I mean, he was a scary, scary man. Maybe he didn't get the body counts of Mao or whatever, but he was one of the scariest men. Again, just look at how he ruled, right? Um, but the thing is that they knew that you had to get public, what we call public license, up here. The basically what they do in the States is they craft a narrative to get people to go along with it, right? So basically, you get the public acceptance down there. So it's just like manufactured consent is what they call it down there. We call it public license up here, manufactured consent down there, right? Same thing, same thing. And they were good at scaring people with the incubator babies, which was a lie, weapons of mass destruction, which was a lie. List goes on and on and on and on, right? And nobody was held to account. And when the soldiers came back with Gulf War syndrome, they told the soldiers that they were just being a bunch of babies, suck it up, blah, 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 be a man. And then you see every one of these people in the Congress. Oh, we stand with the troops. It's an outrage that the Veterans Association is not funded well enough. So, and then when people come up and say, okay, well, let's fund it more. Okay, let's fund it better so we can help these veterans. Then you get people like Justin Trudeau who says the quiet part out loud. Oh, the veterans are asking too much. You know what I mean? Like, fuck them. Why should we take care of them? What a bunch of sissies? You know what I mean? Like, that's the way the government works. They have all this money for the war, but no money to take care of the people after the war. Always the same. Why? Well, the budget, blah, 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 and that'd be socialism. You know what I mean? Like, it's always the same, right? It's always the same. Like if a war planner can't add that into the budget, it's again, the world elites always have money for whatever they want to do, right? They never have money for what we want. We could have all this money for war, but we can't have a single payer healthcare system or a two-tier system down there in the States because that'd be socialism. And again, they brainwashed the conservatives really well on that, not realizing that, as a more conservative leading guy, okay, I have my critiques of the public system. Yes, you can find all kinds of horror stories, but you can find even more horror stories in the private sector system. Again, there's good and bad, right? There's good and bad. But if you're just going to be a staunch conservative, well, know this: the Canadian healthcare system, you get better treatment. That's not just me saying that. That we're like in the top 7 best medical systems in the world. I know our system is extremely strained because of all the immigrants that we brought in. And it's not just them, I get that, but got aging population, all that stuff. But when you factor it against the fact that 40 or more percent of Americans can't afford healthcare, means they just suffer and die. Don't get me. I know the things like again, and when you say that, people are just like, okay, yeah, but did you know that this is wrong and this? Yes, I know. I know about it all. I know the Mate system is a genocidal system against it. Sure, I get it. But if you get into an accident today and you're in Canada, okay, like you go to the hospital, you get fixed up both in Canada and the United States, sure. But the difference is when you get out of the hospital, you're not going to be handed a $250,000 bill. You know what I mean? And on top of that, as a conservative, the average American is paying $7,500 a year for healthcare. The average Canadian, $6,500. So it's $1,000 cheaper. And it helps more people. Like everybody's covered. I mean, almost too many people are covered. Like people that just walk across our borders covered. I'm against that. They should have to pay for health insurance because they don't pay into the system, right? And it's not like we don't already have like Red Cross and stuff like that could do it, right? So yeah, that should be a thing. Like no non-citizens should have to have medical to be in the country. They should have to pay for medical insurance, and if they're too poor to pay for the medical insurance, then they can't stay here. You know what I mean? As foreign workers or students or whatever, they have to pay out of their pocket. That would help our system out a lot. But anyway, I digress. Another topic for another time. But what I'm getting at is that they're going to fuck the veterans over on this one too. Now, let's say it's just 7 people dead, okay? Maybe it's 13,000 casualties. And casualties is a weird thing because people hear casualties and they hear dead, right? There's war dead and then there's casualties. Casualties could include dead, but it could also include injuries and maiming, right? So we don't know how many Americans have actually been killed. We're not going to know. They're not going to tell us. This idea that the Iranians are hitting hotels willy-nilly with pinpoint accuracy, but yet they don't know who they're hitting, again, I mean, it's possible. I mean, they could be shooting these things out blind, but with the accuracy they have, it's, I think, almost impossible that they would not know that, okay, maybe there's 4 American soldiers in this motel. Okay, leave it. That one has 80. Okay, there's 300 civilians. Okay, hit them. You know what I mean? They're probably doing that, or hey, this motel, they cleared out all the people that were there and put them over at another place. And obviously, they're going to be moving these soldiers around. They're not going to leave them in one motel. The motels are getting surrounded by fucking rebel groups as we speak. There's already been shots fired. Again, you're not they're in Saudi Arabia, okay? Iran, they're Trump. They cut the heads off of babies. It's fucking crazy what he's saying. You just bombed the school, and then Iran, they're evil. They're cutting the head off. They chop women in half and cut the head off of babies, right? Okay. And then Saudi Arabia just puts out a decree that hey, if you actually show any footage from Saudi Arabia, we're going to kill you. We're gonna punish you with death. That's what's going on in Saudi Arabia. So our ally Saudi Arabia, who's so humane, the people that behead more people every year than any other country on the planet with their legal system. Somehow they're better than the Iranians, right? Like it's just okay. It's the Middle East. They're all barbaric countries. Like they've got very very strict laws there. That's why like picking the winners and losers. Like it anyway. So the motel's getting hit. We don't know how many soldiers. I can imagine the first few nights is where most of the casualties because. I'm thinking the calculation was the Iranians would never hit civilian targets. Like they would never just level a fucking motel because in the 12-day war, the Iranians only hit targeted military assets and Israeli military assets. Okay, they were probably not. They probably thought like, and again, you could tell just by the way that where they moved the weapons. They moved everything to Israel, like. Yeah, they had some stuff in the Gulf, moving to the Gulf states, okay, just because, it's like, oh, well, we don't have space for it all, right? But they're like, okay, well, when we start up, okay, the Gulf states will be able to support Israel because Iran is just going to concentrate its fire on Israel, right? And they were ready for that. What they weren't ready for is Iran hitting like fucking 30 different countries or 15 different, whatever it's at. I don't know what they're at. But it also comes out, again, whether it's true, whether it's not, this could be take it with a grain of salt. But if it comes out to be true and they can prove this, it's the end of Israel. It is the absolute end of Israel. And that is this, that Cyprus was not, according to the Iranians, if you can believe them, I take it with a grain of salt, I don't necessarily believe them either, that they didn't hit Cyprus, that it was another actor that did. Somebody trying to, and that they didn't hit Azerbaijan and they didn't fire on Turkey. Because, and if you think about it, okay, what would piss Turkey off the most? Hitting a base with nuclear weapons would piss Turkey off the most, right? So the Turks, they're gearing up for a war already. Like they're like, okay, yeah. But the thing is what Israel needs to happen. Again, look, the CIA and the Mossad, they're out there basically trying to stoke up all these rebel groups against Iran. It's not really working. Some are on board, but it's not enough to make a difference. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be able to move them around the Middle East because all the airports and everything are getting fucking bombed, right? And the big news from last night, I already talked about it, but it does seem to be, it's not confirmed yet because, again, we'll have to wait till, again, a lot of these military bases, you can't get footage of shit, right? But yes, it does look like they took out the helicopter base. So there's no way hundreds of guys didn't die on that. Sure, it's mostly hangars there, but there's buildings there. This was an active military, we're talking Apache gunship helicopters. They weren't calling them Apaches. They were calling them something. I guess it must be the SJW. Oh, we can't call them Apaches anymore. But they were calling them Aero gunship helicopters or something like that. I guess because it offends the natives. Or again, it's rewrite history, right? But anyway, yeah, those got hit. Blackhawks, Chinooks. I can imagine there would be some heavy lift aircraft there, like C-17s. And again, if I'm an air defense system, again, I'm telling you, like the F-35, sure, it's a priority target, but the tanker's a higher priority target. Why? Because that will stop the war more than taking out an F-35, because there's a whole bunch of F-35s. There's only a handful of tankers, right? And it creates delays and stuff like that. It gives you more time to respond to the enemy. There's an aircraft carrier being, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier being decommissioned. And I wanted to bring this up because I didn't watch the story to see when they're going to do it or whatever, but this was about the time when they were going to do this. Like, there's a whole bunch of them. I know they got new aircraft carriers in the works, but those are years from being completed. Like, World War II, you could build, they had like 10 or 12 aircraft carriers or whatever they had. All right, and you could put like, the USS Enterprise is probably the most famous, right? And the thing is that they even had aircraft carrier battleships. There was one. That one was in Vietnam. I think that one's been long. I forget the name of that. That was the Indianapolis. Was it the Indian? I forget which one it was anyway, but it was cool. It was like 2 in 1. It's like, we only have enough for one big ship. Okay, let's build it half an aircraft carrier, half whatever, right? And then I think there's about 30 of these little Wasp class mini carriers and amphibious assault, which is reported that, okay, of the fourth carrier group that's going, all these I guess 85th Airborne guys are loading, if we're to believe the propaganda, they're loading up everything right now with labs and everything for a ground invasion. They're going to apparently do an assault on one of the Iranian islands where they're going to try to do a beach landing there. Good luck. But anyway, yeah, so that's what you got for aircraft carriers, right? And the smaller aircraft carriers, the Harriers were operating off them in helicopters. Like they weren't full catapult style carriers, right? They were more like amphibious assault carrier groups. The French have them. There's a French carrier group that's apparently heading to the region. How close will they get? I don't know. Nobody's going in the Strait of Hormuz. Yes. Okay, Fox News. The Strait of Hormuz is not closed down because America is keeping it open. They're saying that because Donald Trump is trying to appease the insurance companies. But right now, like there was another cargo ship. I can imagine it'd be like some like fucking tyrant third world fucking, you guys, you're fired if you don't fucking get that ship through. Just keep your transponder off. It's like, okay, it's a freighter. Okay, they've got binoculars. They can see you. Yes, it got sunk. Like, what kind of captain is going to be stupid enough to leave Anchor. If anything, I'd be trying to get my guys off the fucking ship, anchor the ship, lock everything up, get off the fucking boat, go hide out on the fucking shoreline somewhere because, like the Iranians are going to sink those boats that are sitting at anchor too. You know what I mean? Like it's economic devastation that they're doing, right? But anyway, yeah. So they may have taken out the helicopter base. If they did, a lot of guys died there, like the maintenance crews. Like you don't have one guy working on a helicopter. Like there's, 3 to 5. An aircraft you might have 12 guys working on it, especially during wartime. Like they just kind of like everybody just fucking pile on and get this thing fixed and up in the air. So there's maintenance lags, right, that are going on. There's a good, like I can more believe that there's 13,000 dead, or somewhere in between, say like 10,000 and 13,000 dead, but definitely that many injured. In civilians, yes, the Iranians are taking higher losses. You're probably talking about 3 or 4 thousand dead, or maybe 6,000 dead. Well, we won't know. Like, there's no way to know. But with that much bombs, right? How do you convince somebody that you're hitting military targets, killing all these civilians, but you're not killing a single soldier? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, who believes that? You know what I mean? Why do you think there's such a blackout on the information? You know what I mean? Like, it's if it was going well, they'd be showing you everything. Just think about the Gulf War. Like you're basically CNN, like 24-hour coverage from the deck of the aircraft carrier, or the Tongaroga class destroyer or whatever, super destroyer. They would be, oh, look at this launch. Like they have a like now it's like they're completely silent. Why? Because they just don't want to give away their fucking positions. But I don't think it matters. I think that the Iranians know exactly where. Again, when are they going to? It's not a matter of if they're going to sink the aircraft carriers. It's just when. So Joe Skousen was talking about this about a decade ago. I don't even know if the guy's still alive or not. He's up there pretty good. So, but basically, like all the aircraft carriers, most of them are to be decommissioned around now. So what I think is going on is, because it's so expensive to decommission these things. I know it sounds like crazy conspiracy theory, but again, we're talking about world elites that took out the World Trade Centers, right, for insurance scams and all kinds of stuff, and then the war on terror. Like these people are sick in the head. They would do these things. I wouldn't do this. I would say, okay, well, let's just recycle the steel, or do like the Russians, just find a port where you can just let the things fucking rust. You know what I mean? We'll take them down on a budget. Like take one at a time. Take 5 years to decommission it and chop it up. Whatever. Look, you got welfare recipients. Teach them how to use some welding torches and whatever. Get them to use the crane with the big magnet on it to take big panels away. God knows that steel would be valuable, but it's a lot cheaper to send your aircraft carriers and ships to like India and Bangladesh and all that. There's a big shipyard in Bangladesh. You should see how they do this. They just get like a big freighter or whatever it is, warship, and they go full fucking speed, 30 knots, and they fucking crash it onto the beach. That's all they do. You just see it coming in, they just fucking beach it. There's no hoisting or like that. Just like, full speed, 12 knots, 30 knots, just fucking crash right onto the beach. And then when they crash it onto the beach, then people just start chopping it up. It's like you get like 1,000 guys working on the ship just chopping. Half the guys get killed, fucking pieces of chunks of steel. One guy cuts the final chunk of steel, lands on the other guy's head. Like, yeah, that's how they do it. But that's the cheapest way is to have it sunk in battle, right? So it's like, okay, well, we want to take out the Iranians. We need to decommission these aircraft carriers. Except for like the Gerald Ford is like basically the newest aircraft carrier, right? So some of these aircraft carriers, they might not be ready for decommissioning yet. Some of them are brand new. But some of these older ones, maybe they start sending them, right? Because if they get sunk to the bottom, you save all that money. The sailors don't mean anything to the... Like, if anybody thinks Donald Trump cares about soldiers, like, yeah, he puts on a good show. Whatever. Yeah, he convinced them to vote for him. Okay, great. He's a good speaker. Granted, everybody acknowledges that. But you think for 1 second he cares for these people. No, he is a psychopath, an egotistical psychopath in and out. He cares nothing but about himself and his own. Uh, like he wants his legacy to be. I dropped a nuke on this country. I overthrew this dictator, that dictator. Like he wants to be like fucking Action Jackson, right? Like he wants to be this grandiose, Alexander the Great kind of um, figurehead. But he's not. He's not that at all. He you know, like Alexander the Great. At least while he was chasing a Persian king, turned around and led up a chase to go back and save his own men that were being slaughtered, rather than go for the glory of killing the other king. That's what made him so great, was that he fought alongside his own men. You know what I mean? you know, the kings of old were at least like, even the most tyrannical, cowardice kings at least took their horses to the battlefield. You don't get the Russians. They put their generals in the field. That's why so many of them get killed, right? And the logic behind it is a good logic. I don't know if it's a sound logic, but it's a good logic. That if you put your generals in the field and they have a risk of getting killed, they're going to make better decisions. Well, if they're smart, yeah, that would. Whereas if they're sitting behind a desk in Washington somewhere, they don't care what happens to, they can pretend to be blood and guts Patton if they want. You know what I mean? So yeah. But yeah, the helicopter base is a big one if it's true, and it seems like it's going to be, but we'll have to wait until we get more confirmation on it. But that is a huge loss. Losing Apache gunship helicopters is your close support. Look, when the war in Iraq and Afghanistan were started, the Apache gunship helicopter and the A-10 ruled the skies. It was better than anything else because the A-10 had a 2,000-mile range, and you could load it with like 50,000 pounds of fucking weaponry, right? You could do the highway of death strafing runs. The A-10s were the best ground attack aircraft ever devised by humanity, right? I'm a huge fan of the A-10 for what it is. I always thought Canada should have, when they were $1 million a piece, we should have bought like fucking 500 of them. You know what I mean? We should have just fucking done that. But now, what ended up happening, by the time you get into about the middle of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, the weapons start becoming, you're starting to get better shoulder-fired weapons. Low-level flights are, like, even though most of the weaponry that they would go up against, was obsolete, and the A-10s had no problem with it. I mean, you can find all kinds of videos, like reanimated videos of A-10 runs, and they're like, it's basically the modern P-47. I get it, but with better air defense systems, like for example, A-10s wouldn't stand a chance over the Ukraine. You know what I mean? Why? Because the frog foot still. You know what I mean? The frog foot is a better A-10. You know what I mean? In some ways, it doesn't have the Gatling gun, but it has twin 30 millimeters in the belly. It just doesn't fire as high a rate, but I mean, it fires fast enough. And 30 millimeters is a 30 millimeter. You know what I mean? I know the A-10s shoot depleted uranium. I don't know what the Frogfoots do, but the Frogfoots are slightly faster. They carry about the same. Like a Frogfoot, you can fly it for probably like 6 months before it needs fucking maintenance. It's low tech. You fly with the map in your lap. But they can't outmaneuver missiles. Like they're good at low speed, low level, the same as the A-10. The A-10 might be a little bit better at low speed and slightly more maneuverable, but if you send competent A-10 pilots after a target, or competent Su-25 pilots after the same target, those targets are done. Like if there's no air defense, you don't want Frogfoots in the sky. Like if you're a tank column and you got no air defense, you do not want to meet one of those fuckers in the sky. No more than you want to meet an A-10. They will both make you equally dead, right? So, and the difference is the Americans have built maybe about 1,500 A-10s. God knows how many got destroyed already in combat. Some of because a few did. They were the aircraft that I think took the most losses, just because they're flying low all the time. AAA gets them usually, but again, over Iran, you think you're going to fly Apaches and A-10s? If you can't fly them over Afghanistan and Iraq without getting shot down, like helicopter losses, I think were the highest losses in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Because they're even flying at 500 feet. Like, okay, 500 feet, the RPG-7 might miss you. But if you're below 500 feet, you're fucked. You know what I mean? Um, Fly at, 1,000 feet, whatever, okay, no problem. But like up to 5,000 feet, those Stinger missiles are going to, or Eagle missiles are probably going to get you, right? And the shoulder fired stuff now, like for example, our B-70 Saab air defense man pads, those suckers can fire 8 kilometers. Okay, that's 5 miles. I don't know if they can go straight up for 5 miles, but if they can, that's pretty fucking. That means they're going to shoot somebody down at like 25,000 feet. You know what I mean? It's just like hitting a high speed jet at that altitude. Like the Ukrainians are trying it, not with a lot of success. They hit the odd frogfoot, but the frogfoots just they keep flying. Like the warheads are too light. Like when you saw those F-15s getting shot down. They're coming down like a floating leaf. That was the AIM-9 is just basically knock out the engines. They don't completely vaporize the aircraft, right? Where if you were to get hit with like say an AIM-120, it's a bit more of an explosion, or an AMRAAM, then you're probably going to get vaporized. The Russians, they have like I forget what their new one is, but like it's a derivative of the R-77. You get knocked down by an R-77, you're gonna you shoot down an airliner with that, no problem. Let alone a fighter jet. Anyway, I digress. So, if the Iranians did not open fire on, Cyprus, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, and it comes out that this was another, Israeli false flag, that could turn half of the Middle East against Israel and its allies. Because look, the Middle Eastern countries, they all hate each other, okay? It's the royal families, the governments of these countries that are going along with Israel. Most of the people in the Middle East would probably be okay with Israel being wiped off the map, right? They don't like their citizens dying for Israel. If you think Americans are pissed about it, you can imagine what the Saudis and the Kuwaitis are. I'm sure they hate Iran equally now, and they hate them probably even more now because they're getting shot at by them. But they probably understand why they're getting shot at is because America and Israel, America said, we will protect you, okay, and from Iran, if you let us use your bases and you let us do this, we'll protect you. And what does America do? Well, they're protecting Israel. They're not protecting the people that are hosting them. You know what I mean? So it's like they're like, whoa, you're here to protect us. Why are you fucking sending all the defense systems to Israel? You know what I mean? So yeah, they're questioning. Well, again, once these bases and more U.S. bases are getting taken out. Last night, I believe they attacked the Israeli naval base. Look, the Israeli Navy is not very big. I think they have maybe 3 to 6 submarines of these Dolphin class, which is like a 212, 214 type of submarine, or U-31 type of German submarines. But I do know that they've lost a Dolphin class a few years back. Somebody stole it on them right out of the harbor. The thing is that they do have cruise missile, submarine fired cruise missiles that can fire nuclear warheads. So I think if there's going to be a nuke attack on Iran, that's probably where it's going to come from, is the Israeli Navy, right? Because it could come from the F-35s too. Again, America will just give Israel the B-61s if they don't have enough, right? Again, America's just been giving how much weaponry to Israel? They don't sell it to Israel; they give it to Israel. Right? Americans pay for it; Israel uses it up. But anyway, so the naval base was attacked. Was it completely destroyed? I don't know. Probably, considering the Iranians, They tend to pick a target, finish it off, and then move to the next target. That seems what they're like. They're hitting multiple targets at once. Um, I think they're on missile barrage 31. And everyone, oh yeah, but they're slowing down. They're losing all these launcher trucks, so they're slowing. No, they've hit all the big stuff, right? Every war starts out the same way. It's shock and awe for the first little bit, and then once they find a pace where it's like, okay, they're not going to fire missiles at things that are, like they're probably hit all their primary targets that they wanted to hit. Now they're on the secondary, maybe the third line of targeting. Like it's going to work its way down. The water desalination plants, of course, Trump, because it's a crime against humanity to do that, right? So they're denying it, whatever. And again, like I say, it wouldn't be uncommon for a pilot to be flying around. Oh, okay, that looks like an oil refinery. The satellites make it look like an oil refinery. It's a water treatment plant. Like from 20,000 feet, you can't tell, right? And they're just bombing anything in Iran that they can. But you have to understand something about these rocket trucks. Some of these rocket trucks, okay, the whole truck is the launcher, right? The other ones, okay, they're basically two pieces. You have the rig, and then you have the launcher. So some of these missiles, the launcher might be factored in. I don't know this for sure. But I think what they do is they just drop it out there, bring the truck back, which is their mule. The launcher is sitting there. It's like a wagon. They fire the rocket, and then the Tomahawk missile comes in and destroys it. Okay, but they factored in. They don't, one use out of that carriage system, right? Meanwhile, it's the truck that one truck can bring out 1,000 rockets. You know what I mean, or tens of thousands of rockets. So there's that, right? There's that. Yeah, the big one about again, we'll have to keep an eye on whether or not they'll be able to prove. Because again, think how pissed Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Cyprus is going to be when they find out that it was the Israelis just trying to do a false flag to drag them into their war to fight on Israel's behalf. They're going to be pissed, right? Again, there's no good PR for the Israelis right now. Look, synagogues are getting shot up all over Canada right now. The news is trying to cover it from we're going to bring in more anti-Semitism laws. I think there's Bill C9 coming in. It's more censorship, right? Doesn't work. People are mad. They're really mad. You know what I mean? Look, we shouldn't have Iranians in this country. We shouldn't have Jews in this country. We shouldn't have all these Muslims in the country. You know what I mean? Like we don't need all these people that come here, bring their shit from the old country here. They can fuck off and go back home. If they want to fight, go back home. But on that, we should not be in their countries. We should not be arming Israel. We should have not. Look, Iran was originally armed by the United States. You know what I mean? The Americans always arm the people they fight in the future, right? So there's that. But yeah, the Greater Israel Project is out on full display. It's mainstream media is talking about it now. Some are still trying to gaslight it, but it's too openly admitted. And this is it's always in this end stage of whether it's a communist state or whatever, where they just go for broke. And Trump is going for broke right now. Look, they're looking for a reason to use a nuke against Iran. Okay, they're clearly they're gonna have to do something. If they have to, look, you might have, and yes, if a Virginia class submarine was ordered, that crew was ordered to sink one of their own ships, they would do it. They might send out CIA guys or whatever, and top secret submarine guys, sure, whatever. But they will do that and blame it on Iran just so they would do that. You wouldn't put anything past them. But it doesn't really matter because I do believe the Iranians are going to sink the aircraft carriers. Because a lot of people think, oh, they're just running out. If you're right, they run out. We'll know. We'll know when they run out. You know what I mean? Because you'll see B-52s directly over. You'll see the bombers. Everyone's like, the fighters are directly over the Tehran with impunity. No, they're not. They're firing from a distance, because they use the drones to fly directly over. Sure, but the drones get shot down, right? And I'm not saying they're going to run out of drones right away, but like 20,000 U.S. drones are not going to last that long, right? The Israelis, like, like I'm talking like Predator, Reaper, um, type drones, Global Hawk, those that, like the big expensive drones. Like there's only a handful of those Global Hawks, and the Iranians have already gotten two of them. You know what I mean? Um, the stealth drones and stuff like that. Yeah, these things they are what's flying over for targeting purposes. Without them, it makes it very difficult to lob your munitions in there. Like the Tomahawks, they will find their targets if from a satellite photo. Like, okay, well, we know we're going in there, and they can guide the target in, whatever. And they'll hit some buildings. Like a lot of these Tomahawks are hitting empty buildings, right, or civilian areas or whatever. They are, yes, they're hitting fuel. They're hitting critical infrastructure on the Iranians, and the Iranians are returning the favor, right? You hit our desalination plants, we're going to hit yours. You know what I mean? Like, so the crisis is and again, the Houthis are just sitting there. Wait till they start ganging up. At that point, you have overlapping fields of fire on aircraft carriers. If they come within range. So what I'm thinking is going to happen next is, if it is true that the amphibious assault groups, Marines, are now heading, and the the 85th and all that are now coming across the ocean, they'll be there in about a week, give or take. Like, are they traveling at 20 knots? Are they traveling at 15 knots? Are they traveling at 32 knots? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how fast the convoy can move, right? But if they are, and they're actually going to be as crazy as to try to do a beach landing, like World War II, like we're not fighting a World War II war anymore. Even up here in Canada, like our generals, like we're preparing, we're preparing for the army. We're not, like we got to rethink how, like I'm glad that the Stephen Harper era warships are starting to be built now. The icebreakers I'm very happy about. Can't wait till those are finished. But, like, for example, do we really need 15 River class destroyers when maybe we need, instead of 12 submarines, maybe we need 30 submarines and 3 destroyers? Because we're about to find out, look, we've already found out that tanks, yes, they still have a use on the battlefield, but they're pretty much obsolete. Why? Because the $200 drones are knocking out the $40 million tanks. And while the Russians built $4 million tanks, because they don't, look, the T-90 tank is as good as any Western tank. It's whoever gets the first shot, right? It really comes down to that big ass gun. If you get a 125 millimeter modern stabilizing saboted round hit an Abrams tank anywhere, it's pretty much going to be obliterated. If the depleted uranium 120 millimeter Abrams round hits a T-90, it's pretty much anywhere, it's going to be obliterated, right? If the new German, like, 130 and 140 millimeter rounds hit you out of the Leopards, yeah, you're pretty much obliterated. Why? Because the weaponry is just that powerful. Like, there's really no defense against a direct hit in a vital area on a tank with those, right? So that there, but the problem is you can't get your tank to fight the other tank, because the second they come out of the tree line, there's a fucking drone just fucking whacking the shit out of them. That's why the cope cages are all over the, like if you look at the Ukraine, the Ukrainians, and again, we saw this in Syria. Like the anti-tank armor, like the ERA armor wasn't working that well on the T-72s and the T-80s that the Syrians had, that they had to put these cope cages on it. So if anything, the cope cage that basically the Syrians came up with, they were putting it on their T-55s. Everybody was laughing because it looked so bizarre. It's like, oh, that's not going to stop anything. But it actually worked. Which was the birth of the turtle tanks, right? Just Google pictures of turtle tanks. You'll see what I mean. And what they did is like all this stuff, like it's not designed to uh, protect the tank's armor. What it's designed to do is just stop either the anti-tank weapon. It has to, well, as soon as it hits something, it deforms, right? So it's the idea is to deform it so that it can't penetrate the tank, or that when the drone hits it, it explodes on the outer side of the armor, and you just blow a piece of steel off. It doesn't really matter. It's a very cheap fix, but the problem is it's quite cumbersome, and it limits the tank on a lot of stuff. But that said, tanks are still useful, but drones are more usefuler, and that's the wars. Like again, like I said in 2010, World War III was going to be a cruise missile, anti-shipping missile, air defense systems, drones. It was going to be robot wars, as I said back then. 100% correct. Why? Why? Because thinking back then, I'm like, okay, well, if I was going to take out a U.S. aircraft carrier, it's a lot easier to just lose drones than fighter jets. And why send a jet to go drop anti-shipping missiles when you can just make a longer anti-shipping missile, and it's cheaper. Like that's why the Iranian strategy is much better. It's like they're able to fire 3, 4, 5, even 10 to 1 on some of their rockets. Like the missile interceptors, the cheapest ones are about $500,000 a piece. The average is about between these interceptors cost between $500,000 and $4 million a piece, right? And you have to fire 3 at a time, 2 to 3 at a time, $8 to $12 million every time you fire a fucking THAAD system or Patriot system. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. When for that same price, you could fire 30 rockets. Now, the Iranians have also said, speaking of, none of their rockets from this point on will be less than 1.5 tons of warhead. So that's an escalation. Does that mean they're completely out of all the old cheap stuff? I don't think so. I think it's just like, okay, well, this is like phase 2. Okay, they're going to hit bigger targets. Look, the cluster munitions, that just came in, a couple of days ago. That was new. I don't think they did that the last time. But cluster munitions are very useful for softer targets. You can take out city blocks with it. Just get everything to burn. I know most of the buildings in the Middle East are pretty much all made out of like cement and stuff like that. But things still do burn. There's still stuff made out of wood. You know what I mean? But just the idea, it's just the like it's like buckshot, right? Like it just covers everything. So I don't know if we're ever going to get the truth on how many Americans have been killed so far. The Iranians are going to overplay the data. And even them, they can't really confirm themselves, because they're not there. Like they can tell you what they hit. They can tell you that, okay, the base was full of people, but was there 172 people on the base? Were there 74 people on the base? Was there 9 people on it? Like they can't tell you that, right? They can just tell you that base still had movement on it from our, like they got guys with cell phones and CDs and just like email. Okay, I'll just email. Yeah, sitting there on a balcony somewhere saying, yeah, the missile hit exactly where they want. Like they have forwarded observers all over the Middle East. This is clear. The how close they can get, I don't know, but binoculars can get you at least seeing that something hit the base. And okay, well, I can't tell you how many people died, but I can tell you the building you were aiming at got hit. And it's now leveled. It's now rubble. It's just, it's a disaster for the Trump administration. Hopefully, though, when they hold Trump, Trump is going to go, if he lives long enough. Again, I'm not making any threats. I know some people have been trying to warn me to watch what I say in the comments. They'll use anything again. I know, but that's the time we live in, right? No, I'm not making any threats. I understand, I'm not calling for anybody to die or anything like that. What I'm telling you is you could see it brewing. Like if you're a CSIS guy or an RCMP guy watching this, or the CIA or Mossad or whatever, you're watching this and it's like, oh, we got to shut this anti-Semite up. It doesn't matter. People are going to see it, right? Like you've already got the Free Palestine people in full enragement. We know these left-wing people have been attacking and killing people at a low rate, recently, in the past couple of years. But that's going to uptick, right? Political assassinations are going to become more popular. Not because I'm calling for it. It's just you have to understand the crazies are going to snap first. They always do. But when you make an enemy of absolutely everybody around, like Israel has no friends, except for a handful of nut jobs in the, the Trump administration. Even the Zionists around the world, like like the Starmer government and stuff like that, Macron, like they yes, they'll do whatever Israel wants to a degree, but they're not going to go full insanity because they're like, no, my population is going to uprise against me and kill me. Like Macron, for example, he's got so many radical jihadis in his country. You know what I mean? Again, it's going to be when they rise up. You're going to see a lot of dead French people. You know what I mean? The same thing's going to happen in Germany. So they can't just back Israel because it's the same thing in the UK. Like almost all your major cities are now Muslim majority. You can't just back Israel because that's going to that's going to have consequences, right? So yeah, the UK, are they in or are they out? Well, they're not ready to go. Their warships are all pretty much down for maintenance, except for one, I think. Up here in Canada, out of our 12, I think we have 2 or 3 that are still. Like Trudeau basically let all our Halifax class frigates basically, sit there waiting for maintenance, waiting for parts, right? So yeah, Carney's he's kind of getting things going, but there's still a parts backlog. There's still like we got all these labs. We got like 900 of them. Not all of them are in the country. A lot of them are overseas, but we're building new ones. But the thing is like our supply chains, the same problem we have with our submarine. We could send them out for a couple of weeks at a time a year. Sometimes we can only send them out for a couple of days because we don't have good parts supplies, right? And Carney is setting up, but again, it's going to be 10 years before you see this stuff. Like, let's say we take the Kaesong 3 submarine from South Korea. Well, that's a whole package. We're going to build a torpedo here. The maintenance dock is going to be here. The parts supply is going to be here. And the Germans we don't know the full, the German subs. We don't know. Like, I don't know. Carney's kind of looking like he wants to go 2-tier on almost everything. It's like, okay, yeah, well, the German sub is really, it's that 212 CE. I think there's 3 of them built now. Which the best thing we could do is see if we can lend lease and do joint exercises on one and say, look, how would you like to do a joint exercise with us in the Arctic at the same time? We'll get the Kaesong 3 and then we can evaluate both submarines and say, okay, well, when we get ours built, we like this sub over that sub. This one's a clear winner. Okay, they're so close it's hard to tell. We'll toss a coin, whatever. But we need these new features for the Arctic. Again, this is why I don't understand why the A-26 from Sweden isn't in the mix here, because there's a sub completely built for the Arctic, right? And it's a very cool sub. It's a sub I would have went for myself because I know it would work for us, But maybe we need all 3 of them. Maybe we need the A-26 in the Arctic. And for special operations, we need the 212, and for coastal defense, we need the Kaesong. You know what I mean? Who knows? But I think submarines have still got they probably got a decade to 2 decades left of usefulness, right? Because again, this World War II style fighting is like, oh, we need big tanks and stuff like that. When, okay, for the cost of one tank, you could build probably 50 rockets, heavy long-range rockets, maybe 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles, or you could build, 1,000 drones or 10,000 pieces of artillery. You know what I mean? Like, you can look at it like that, or say 200 shoulder-fired air defense. You know what I mean? You can look at it like that, right? But the bottom line is no matter what we get, we have to build it ourselves. We have to build it ourselves to be like France, like the United States, like China, like Russia, like Germany, where you could pretty much build everything yourself. France, China, France, China, Russia, and I guess North Korea as well, and the United States, they all build their stuff 100% in house, right? And that's what we should be working towards. Now, easier said than done. It takes a decade to always do everything. But once you get it built in your country, we should have completed the Avro Arrow is what I'm saying. But we'll see, because that's where the wars are going. When you see, it's going to be like the U.S. military commanders in the weapons industries are going to be slow to react because they still think like Trump talking about a super battleship. That's World War II. That super battleship. Okay, look. When the Iranians sink the aircraft carrier groups, okay, how they do that is going to be what dictates the future of warfare, naval warfare, right? So if it's like, okay, the carrier group is sunk by a Kylo class submarine, okay, that's World War II, okay, and maybe you sink a Kylo class submarine just as it sinks the carrier. Okay, fine. For the Iranians, sinking one carrier versus losing one sub is probably worth the cost. You know what I mean? It's worth the cost. Yes, you lose your crew, but you're losing like 30 guys versus 3 to 5,000 guys, maybe even 8,000 guys on a carrier, depending on the carrier, right? Some of the carriers can be overstaffed. Like the Americans always overcrew their subs, their ships, and stuff like that. So in case of emergency, you can stay deployed longer, but in case of emergency, you have more hands to fight. But when you lose a ship, you lose more people. So if that's that, that's still World War II. Okay. If an Iranian warship comes out, whether it's a sleeper ship, whatever, that's still World War II. World War II. But if Iranian rockets damage the ship and then take it out, and they have the ability to use these rockets to hit moving targets, at that point, then the aircraft carrier is completely obsolete anyway. But like it'll be completely obsolete. If it's taken out by the anti-shipping missiles, again, it just, the missiles will always outdo, because you have to stop every missile that's on trajectory, every cruise missile that's on trajectory, when it's terminal homing, so to speak, or torpedo, whatever. I think the Iranians are going to use like multiple things, but let's say they do have drones that are bigger than the Shahed 137. We just don't know what they are yet. And let's say they travel at, say, 700-800 miles an hour. They bob, they weave, they do all these things to evade. And they come in with, like, say, like a 10,000-pound warhead type of thing. And they just smack the ship right dead center and just cut it in half, right? Sounds like almost impossible, but, with the power of the weapons nowadays, who knows, right? That'll just make the carrier groups completely obsolete, because it's like they can be sunk at any time. They're undefendable because the warship has to be 100% accurate every time, or it gets hit, right? And sure, hitting these stationary radar systems is hard enough, and the opportunity in when you hit it. Now, what the Iranians could be doing, because I'm like, why haven't they done it? Because I know they have the capability. I know a lot of people, they're like, with all what's going on, they're still I'm not overplaying the Iranians' capabilities. I'm telling you, they've hit 15 countries and pretty much destroyed or mostly destroyed 27 U.S. bases, maybe more. And, they hit a French base, that's for sure. They may or may not have hit a base in Cyprus. We don't know. Because they're not claiming, and again, why wouldn't they claim it? You know what I mean? Maybe they're like, oh wow, okay, this is like a hit too far, because it's like we don't want to unite the other Arab countries against us, and and Turkey and stuff like that, because we just want to fight Israel and the United States, not the rest of the Gulf states, and half of Europe or whatever, right? So maybe that's the Iranians say, okay, we hit it, but let's say it was the Israelis, you know. But it's believable that the Israelis would do it because they do all kinds of false flags all the time. The Mossad, by way of deception, we will wage war. That's their main slogan, right? So they lie about everything. So who knows? Who knows, right? But the thing is that we know they have carrier killer type cruise missiles, right? We know the Houthis have them. So the question then becomes, what are they waiting for? And I started to think about it. Okay, well, let's say you get your average Ollie Burke. Okay, it has 150 Tomahawks on there. Okay, now depending on how many Tomahawks per week are being flung out there, like they obviously fired off. Like these ships are going to be getting pretty low on missiles, right? So the Tomahawks are not the issue for the Iranians. The issue is the Sea Sparrows and the Pac 6s, Pac 3s, and Pac 6 missiles, right? Because those and the phalanx systems, right, or the Sea Whiz, phalanx, basically Gatling gun, shoots down anti-shipping missiles. Some of these warships don't have those anymore. They've went completely to like defensive missiles. Which I don't know why they would do that. I'd keep those systems, But some of these Ollie Burkes they have like 30 missiles max, right? The Russian ships usually are overloaded with missiles because there's two schools of thought on guided missile cruisers. Is that number one, you have enough missiles to pummel the shitballs out of the enemy. But number two, that when your ship takes a hit, that it's not just a fucking powder keg either. You know what I mean? This is one of the things. This is why, like with the Russians, with their naval tactics, they tend to fire the full volley of everything just so they can empty out the ship, so that if they do take a hit, they might have a fire, but they don't explode. You know what I mean? Because so they could be basically trying to run the ships out of missiles and then get them on the reload. Right? That could be it too. Because every night there's a report that the Iranians have fired stuff at the aircraft carriers, but there's no way to confirm that, because a lot of it is just these AI fucking videos that they just all they do is lie, right? So a lot of that there too is also like you have to understand some of it is just the data center AI bots putting shit in your algorithm, making stuff up for you content that you would like, right? It's meant for money. And then there's the grifters, again, if it's AI narrated, 9 times out of 10, just shut off the video. Some of it is true, but a lot of that is just people just grifting, right? Making money. And fine, whatever. But at the other side of it, it's also disinformation. Tell you we're doing something that we're not. So maybe there is a WASP class amphibious assault group on their way to the Middle East right now with the 85th Airborne Marines and whatever. Or maybe there's not, right? We don't know. You don't know until you can, kind of sort of verify it. And again, with every Gulf state pretty much blacking out its, but they can't stay on top of it because there's just too many cell phones out there, right? But that's why, like Saudi Arabia, like if you release battle damage, you're going to be beheaded. They're literally going to kill their population for, it's crazy. But that said, then you get Chinese satellite photos confirming the aftermath of the Iranian rocket attacks. And again, sometimes that takes a week, whatever, a couple of days, whatever. Because I'm sure there's like efforts to blind the Chinese satellites too. And all these surveillance ships, there's a surveillance ship way off, which is guaranteed they're tracking and giving tracking data to the Iranians, right? Like, will Trump be crazy enough to tell, like a sub commander to go sink a Chinese surveillance warship? That's instantly guaranteed to have a retaliation. It wouldn't guarantee full out war, but at that point, the Chinese will say, okay, yeah, here's the heavy hitter missiles, sink all the carrier groups. So when that happens, I don't think that's going to be the grand finale for the Iranians, but I think they're going to do it because they don't want a rally around the flag, and you know how people are, right? It doesn't matter if it's just Americans, whatever. It's like they're against the war, against the war. Oh, they killed our people. We got to go avenge them. Well, you wouldn't have to do that if you weren't there in the first place, right? So it's hard to say why they're holding back, because this idea that they can't hit the carrier groups when they've taken out the best air defense systems in the world, the THAAD systems, and again, $1.2 billion radar system, one of the most, if not the most expensive radar system in the world, and they took it out. They took it out, right? And again, these THAAD systems, there's only 10 of them that the Americans have. Like, people think they have thousands that they don't. They don't have that much air defense systems. They have maybe about 70 or 80 Patriot systems around the world. That's it. They're not all going to be allocated to Israel. Like, Taiwan's probably going to say, no, those fuckers are staying here. You know what I mean? But we're even at that, for all the money of a Patriot missile, I'd rather have it than not have it. But you see that they're not that effective. They're really not that effective. They can't really stop bombardments. Like the rocket bombardment, the cheap rockets are, they do billions of dollars of damage almost. Like, I mean, we don't know what the cost of this war is already. Never mind the commercial cost, just the actual cost of, the military equipment that's been destroyed. If you took out a helicopter base, well, what's an Apache helicopter? What, 40 million bucks a pop? What's a Chinook? 30 million bucks a pop? 20 million bucks? Maybe they're $1 million a pop. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of money. You know what I mean? It's a lot of money. Aircraft hangars, what, $1 million a pop? 500,000 bucks a pop? And then the loss of life, right? Add that in. So we'll have to wait and see. But the last thing I want to talk about, because I'll make this video a little bit shorter today, because is what it is. Okay. The domestic sleeper cell narrative. Now, there's a couple of schools of thought on this. Some people, okay, here they go. They're going to do all kinds of false flags to rally support around the flag, around the flag to get us to go kill more Iranians. Look, the rally around the flag is not going to matter. The more you rally around the flag, the more of your own people you're going to get killed in the long run. But there is, like I say, the crazy snap burst. Like, you have to understand, like, there's people that are mentally ill out there that of all of a sudden they're now a jihadist, right? Because it gives them a cause, right? And there's already been like airport delays. There's I can't think. Anyway, brain fart on the airbase. It's where they station a lot of B-52s. They've grounded them all because suspicious drone activity above the bases. And what did I say near the beginning of the war? At some point, like, it looks like these bomber bases in the States are being surveilled by drones, right? Which is highly illegal to fly drones over military bases, right? But you never know what's coming from. What I'm thinking is, what I suspected is you're going to start seeing what you saw in Ukraine due to the Russians, where they got, like, a guy drives along with a delivery truck. Suddenly, the top of the delivery, the trailer part opens up, and out comes all these little drones with munitions on them, landing on wings of B-52s, blowing holes in them, lighting them on fire. And if they get a few with loaded up with bombs, could you imagine a B-52 with free fall bombs? They were able to carry like 100 bombs. They got once. The B-52, the bombing of the Ho Chi Minh Trail was 500-pound, 1,000-pound bombs and 100 of them. Like, it's unbelievable. If you've ever seen a B-52 fly, I've seen them at air shows a few times. They are like that. Like those things are going to serve for 100 years. Like they've already been serving for like 70 years. That's crazy. Some of them, because they're big enough that you can actually chop them up and lengthen them out. And like the original B-52s are a lot smaller than the ones you see today. They've upgraded the engines. They've done this. They've done that. Right. It's a bomb truck, right? But they can carry probably at least 2 dozen heavy cruise missiles. Like what? How many? What they carry? What 50 Tomahawk missiles? Whatever it is, they can carry a lot, right? Picture one of those fully loaded, sitting on the tarmac, ready to go. Okay, waiting for the other ones to load up. Because it takes hours to load these things up. People spend a day just loading a B-52. So they're loading them up. They're getting them ready. They're sitting on the tarmac, ready for takeoff, whatever. All of a sudden, bang, in comes these drones or mortars or whatever it is. Like sleeper cells are activated, right? And they start blowing up all these. Like Americans are not ready for the. It's not going to be terror attacks like you think. It's war. These are not terror attacks. These are going to be acts of war. You're not ready for that on your own soil. Will that get the rally around the flag like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor and stuff like that? No. It'll have the opposite effect. Because people say, like, okay, here was 10,000 guys on a base, and suddenly it just got vaporized by like a fucking rocket out of nowhere. Or a drone. Like picture a Shahed 136 flying into like a recruitment base. There's 400 guys in a barracks or whatever it is. Bang. Like Americans are not ready for that. Like it's kind of like what happened in Ukraine. All these brave mercenaries went over, Canadians and British and Americans and all that, and they're in the eastern side of Ukraine in these barracks, ready for training to go, do their Call of Duty fight against the Russians. Suddenly, while they're sleeping in the barracks, the fucking Russians start artillerying the barracks. They're like, "Fuck! I can't believe they artillery the barracks." And I'm like, "Well, it's a war zone. What the fuck did you think?" But there's a recruitment center. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, again, you're going to see it. The Iranians, you killed their Ayatollah. You killed their most holy religious figure. Sure, they got a new guy. I think they're on the third or fourth one. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These are replaceable people. But the idea of killing their Ayatollah is, like you've made an enemy for the next 10,000 years. You know what I mean? They're going to get even, and what does get even mean? Well, it means total war, total destruction. You've killed, like again, I'm glad people are noticing now that, like these Iranian girls that got killed, schoolgirls that got killed. But where were you when 1.5 million Iraqis were being slaughtered by A-10s and democracy JDAMs and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you're like, again, the left is only mad at Donald Trump for this war because they hate Donald Trump, not because they love Iran. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. The conservatives, which about 90% of them are against this war, the most of them, like the libertarians, most of them are anti-war. Yes, I bash on libertarians for some stuff, sure, but in general, most of them are anti-war unless they're Zionist evangelicals, right? Do not call them Zionist Christians. There's no such thing as a Zionist Christian. You're either a Christian or you're a Zionist. You can't be both. And even if they believe they're both, they're not. Their actions are Zionist, right? And those are the only people that are supporting the war in the United States. The left, the right, the center, most people are against Israel and what they're doing. And they know this is Israel's war. There's still some people saying, no. The United States has dragged Israel into this war. No, the United States does whatever Israel wants. Why? Because 2/3 of your Congress are dual citizenship Israelis. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. You should not allow dual citizenship anybody in your higher levels of government. We have a problem with it up here in Canada. You have a problem with it in the UK. You have a problem with it everywhere. Should be old stock Canadians only. They could be native. They could be whatever. But if their ethnicity, like for example, in Canada, they're going to like start to replace the regiment names because like the Cameron Highlanders are too Scottish, right? The French Vendus are it's too French. So you need an immigrant army now, right? So it's like, no. No, you know what I mean? All this political correctness is what the political correctness and the they, thems and pronouns. That's why people don't join the military for number one. But for number two, it's because of these fake wars for Israel. All wars are bankers' wars. All wars are for Israel. There's no way around that. You can call me anti-Semite all you want, but am I wrong? No. Who's financing it? You know. But anyway, yeah. So the threats on the home front are already starting to appear. Yes, up here they're trying to make it illegal for like protesting in front of churches and stuff like that. And again, they didn't do this. Like think of all the churches that have been burnt down in Canada, the United States, UK, France, Germany. All these church fires, these old churches that people are going around burning down, right? Um, they don't do anything about that because that serves the purpose of the ruling elites in every country. It's like, well, you're erasing the history of the people because you're not going to build these old churches again, especially some of the ones in France. Like they're like 1,000 years old. You know. Back in the '80s, there was like all these like black metal guys going around, goth guys going around burning all those old churches in the Netherlands and stuff like that. These satanic guys, right? Yeah. Now it's like, okay, yeah, you don't touch those things. That's our heritage. You know what I mean? And the thing is that they're only concerned about it now because synagogues are getting attacked. Look, I don't want to see synagogues attacked either, but like I understand why it's happening. And I told you, look, we're living in the times. It's not what I want. It's my observations are very clear. We are living in the times of the 110th expulsion of the Jews. It started in 2015, kicked off with the migrant crisis. That was the beginning of it. It might take 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years to play out. But trust me, we are in the 110th expulsion of the Jews. Why? Because everybody's mad at them. Why do you think so? Because of the stuff they do, like the Greater Israel Project stuff, and carpet bombing Palestinian kids and whatever, and bombing Iranian schoolgirls. Like that overshadows a lot, guys. Like that's bad PR, no matter how you do it. And Trump can't play it down, right? And the U.S. military can't play it down, right? The other thing is we're also in the 10th crusade, right? Because what do you think remigration now is all about, right? That's people don't want more mass immigration. And when this next wave of migrant crisis happens, and it will, and give it another couple of weeks, when people really start jumping into the lifeboats, it takes time. Like some airliners are still getting people out, like getting the tourists out, but you have to understand there's going to be a collapse of tourism in the Middle East, which is a big part of their, like we're talking $1 billion a day of tourism that they're losing. You know what I mean? Like, or something like that. It's an obscene amount of money that they're going to be losing in their economies all throughout the Middle East. It's kind of like the airliners. They got to get the people. Like when these airliners leave, whoever's on them are the people that get out, right? Because to get airliners in, like who's going to send an airliner in? Because the thing is that the insurance companies, this is the big problem with the freighters. Nobody will insure you to go into the Persian Gulf, right? They're not going to insure you to do that. You're not going to go around the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to insure you to come out. You know what I mean? This is the problem Trump is trying to get ahead of. Oh, well, we'll bankroll it. Don't worry. Like right now, like the Americans just got hit by another, you lost 92,000 jobs confirmed on top of getting hit with a bill from the EU for $700 million. You know what I mean? Like all this is that, and then all these losses that you've been taking all week on the military bases and stuff. Like again, and just the cost of running the war. It's like, 9 or I forget what it is a day to run a carrier group, but it's like $9 or $10 million a day, right? So you're already over $100 million just in like operational costs on these carrier groups, right? Times 3, like it's like 300 million bucks this week. You probably spent $500 billion, in like 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and the losses are over 200 million of what they're going to confirm, right? Again, the American taxpayer has to pay this. Meanwhile, gas prices and grocery prices going up everywhere. I didn't look at the gas prices this morning. I would say that we're probably going to go over $2 a liter here easily. In the next, say, within the month anyway, for sure. $8,500 gold. I have to revise that. It's going to be more like $25,000 gold by the end of the year. Look, when I made my prediction, I was figuring we wouldn't hit $5,000 gold till about June, but we hit it like a week after I made the prediction. Look, from January 1st to now, we went from $3,000 gold to 50. Peaked at 5,600. It's, I think, sitting around 5,000 or whatever. It's just this, right? And the world, the higher the gold price goes, the more debt we're ensuing, the less purchasing power we have, the worse the world's going to feel. You know what I mean? Now, add in sleeper cells again, and when people say sleeper cells, they think of people like like yes, you are going to see the crazies in the peace trucks running people over, Durka Durka style, like you seen, like on the Christmas markets that you see in Europe and stuff like that. Yes, you're going to see that, but you're going to see that all summer. You're going to see like basically Muslims driving around with plow trucks, killing everybody, right? Yeah, you're going to see that, but that's like the keep your head on a swivel anywhere you go. If you're going to be in a diverse area, sucks to be you. Again, I'm not a racist person. In the sense of I hate everybody, blah, 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 or whatever. No, I'm just a realistic person. I understand group dynamics and stuff like that. And the last thing I would say about this is that I also understand that there's going to be two types of sleeper cells. There's going to be actual sleeper cells and then false flag, or opportunist sleeper cells, right? Which, okay, maybe that's three types. So the false flag is the Israeli Mossad setting stuff up, killing people, blaming it on Iran, and then to rally around it, because a lot of people are lowbrow, they'll believe it. And then there's other people that everything's a false flag. I don't think it works like that. I think like the guy in Texas that was walking around with like property of Allah shirt. Yeah, that's your crazy. That's your guy that just woke up this morning and said it's now my duty to go kill people, in the name of. If he didn't do it in the name of Islam, he would have done it in the name of white supremacy. He would have done it, fighting white supremacy. He would have done it for whatever, misgendered me, whatever it would be. Again, these people are crazy, right? You're going to get that. These are the guys that are going to be driving around in the peace trucks, running people over. They're going to target Jews. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. Muslims are going to target Jews because the Jews are already targeting. Again, you're hearing about the synagogues getting shot at, but like for example, like you got like pro-Iranian places in Canada also getting shot at. So like pro-Ayatollah or whatever. Yeah, those guys are getting shot at too. Why? Because like I said when I was a kid, I figured out like. When you take refugee A and refugee B from the old country, or refugee or just immigrant A, immigrant B that were fighting each other in the old country, bring them here. How long until they start fighting each other here? Now we know. And we're going to bring in the millions. We're going to be bringing in refugees in the millions in every Western country. It's just going to, like, there's going to be a lot of civil conflict. If you want to call it Civil War light, it still is. But it's going to go from verbal to physical. There's no way stopping it now. You are going to see hyper-nationalism being cracked down on because even with Jews attacking Muslims, Muslims attacking Jews all over the West, it'll be more important that we go after hate speech and white supremacy. Because that's what they do, right? Because why deal with the problem when you can just divert it to these guys? But that's going to have its consequences too. Again, it's only a matter of time before these guys... Once they've had enough, they're going to start fighting. Then what are they going to do? Then what are they going to do? Double down harder? I don't think so. You're about to see a lot of people killed. You're going to be seeing political assassinations even higher than what we've been seeing. Look, I'm not calling for any of this, but I'm usually right on it. And the thing is that you are going to have Iranian assets that are, and probably Chinese assets, North Korean assets, Russian assets, you name it, Venezuelan assets, that are going to start blowing shit up in the United States. and the rest of the Western world. Watch for train derailments. Remember 2019? All these trains getting derailed, and then suddenly it all stops. All these remember all these refineries catching on fire, and then suddenly all of a sudden it all stops. Like it's not consistent. Like you don't have like go from like 300 or I forget what the number was, like 300 industrial accidents, major industrial accidents a year to 2,700 major industrial accidents a year, and then back down to normal again. Like that doesn't work like that. We're at war, guys. So there's that, and then again all the other crazy stuff in between. So be stocking up. Like whatever's on the shelf right now is on sale. We're about to find out what the term unobtainium truly means. Look, the United States is in a bad situation. The food supply is in shambles because of what Trump has done to the farmers. Look, you're going to see global food shortages like we've never seen in human history. Africa is about to depopulate big time. And because of the starvation, like the Middle East can't ship the food over to them anymore because they can't even get the food coming in themselves. These backlogs, sure, you can try to get in by the other side. Remember, the Houthis are on the other side. They can start shooting tankers and freighters and whatever too, right? Like there's a bit of a distance to fall here before it all comes to a head. But make no mistake, you will start to see the cracking up of it fairly soon. But yes, you will have like 007 spy vs spy kind of sabotage going on as they ramp up the war. And Trump is not indicating anything other. Like next week, he's going to tell you something along the lines of the war is going to be about 6 months now because the Iranians are not just surrendering and it's their fault because they're evil. Blah blah blah. You're gonna. Yes, your average Fox News watcher will believe this because they're stupid. But the thing is, it's mostly the aging boomers that are irrelevant now anyway, because they're just so brainwashed. And I'm not trying to pick on all boomers, but they've got the intellect of a 2-year-old. When it comes to these things, it's just like, no, we have to go and support our troops. We have to go and go to war because our commander in chief said so. Because the Iranians, they're terrorists. Fuck. Yeah. We go blow up with when you hear the term Iranian aggression, that's the buzzword that it tells you exactly how these people think. Iranian aggression. Well, retaliation is a form of aggression, sure, but they're retaliating. You attack them first, now they're attacking you. Again, you kick the hornet's nest, and they get mad. They say, I only kicked the hornet's nest once. Why are they stinging me multiple times? Because you attacked them. You don't get these neocons have this idea that we're going to preemptively strike you and bomb you. We'll allow you to hit us this much and that's it. It doesn't fucking work like that. You know what I mean? You go to war with special military operations. No, it's a war. It's like the Ukraine. Everybody calls Putin out for the bullshit of special military. It's not a war. It's special military operations, right? So, epic fail is a special military operation, according to Trump. Putin's like, stop stealing my ideas. But to the general public, it's like, it's fucking war. And it's total war. But I will look. The Iranians are the idea that the rocket attacks are not as bombarding as what they were doing. It's not a sign that they're running out of missiles. This is actually worse. It's a sign that they've overwhelmed their objectives of taking. The reason why they use the cheap rockets first is because even if 90% of the THAAD and Iron Dome and the Patriot missile systems and the David Sling systems and the Taurus systems were able to stop these, they ran most of these systems out of missiles. It was, and they destroyed many of these systems that are not going to be online ever again. You know what I mean? Like there's no rebuilding the THAAD system. The second you try to rebuild it, they're going to hit it again. They see construction work taking place on it. Like you're not just going to bring in another radar system and guidance system and rebuild the compound. It took a decade to build these fucking things. You know what I mean? And there's no replacements. When they're gone, right? It depletes the capabilities of the United States and Israel to see these weapons coming. which means you don't have to send as many because they have less time to react. The Iron Dome is only good out to maybe about 100 miles or something like that, which is impressive, don't get me wrong. But it's not like being able to shoot something down 500 miles away, you know what I mean? Or 200 miles away, you know what I mean? It's less time to react. You know, and then if you don't have the 5,000 kilometer radar coverage that you had, or the 3,000 or whatever, now again, by the time you detect these things, you have like 2 minutes to react instead of 4 or 8. You know, like it takes 15 minutes from Tehran to Tel Aviv. Like it's the ultimate in air travel. Is an Iranian rocket traveling at Mach 6 to Mach 13, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't take them like. During the Cold War, an ICBM would take you an hour to an hour and a half, right? In the 1950s, okay? To get a missile from Moscow to Washington was about an hour and a half. So you had an hour and a half to live, right? Then somewhere in the 1960s, it was about a half an hour, okay? From Moscow to Washington, ICBM, right? Topol-M fires, or, you know, whatever, or the Minuteman fires, it was about that. Now, the Minutemans they're still about, you know, like they're not as fast, right? There's the Russian stuff. The Sarmat 18s is 15 minutes from Moscow to Washington. So, like, it's like, yeah, you know, you kiss your ass goodbye. Now, that said, there's boomer subs out there that basically could be like 200 miles off your coast or even 1,000 miles. That's like 4 or 5 minutes before those missiles get to you. If you don't know what a boomer sub is, the nuclear, like the Ohio class and the Abori classes, and if they bring back the old Typhoons again, I think there's still 3 of them or 2 of them left, sitting mothballed or whatever. But you never know what the Russians will pull out. You know, I think they're up to 3 Bori class right now, so that's a lot of missiles. It's 16 missiles per. The Ohio class are 24 missiles per. The Trident or the Vanguard. Is it the Vanguard? That's the British one. I think they have 16 to 20 missiles or whatever that they fire. I forget what their boomer subs do, but it's a lot of nuclear subs out there. You know, like Planet Smashers. And then the Chinese have a couple of themselves. I think they can fire 12 to 16 missiles or whatever it is. And again, they're in the middle of the Pacific, and they can cover the entirety of the United States, you know, with their ballistic missiles. So very, very scary. Very, very scary where we're at. But that said, no, the sleeper cells, I think, is the next phase. And by sleeper cells, it's the ones that are going to go after the infrastructure. Again, these cheap drones, they've probably, this is how crazy it's going to be, they've probably been building these things in the United States. They would have smuggled tons of them across the Mexican border under the Biden years in anticipation of this. So basically, they only have to get lucky for B-52s a max of 1,500 times. That's every B-52. Now, that said, considering I don't know how many they would have in mothball, they only have about 150 B-52s that are capable, you know, that are in service right now. So the rest of the B-52s, probably most of them have been recycled by now. But let's say they can bring out 500 B-52s, okay? Okay, no problem. But it's, you know, if they're getting taken out on the runways in the United States, air defense systems are pointless at this point. This is what I'm talking about. Like, you know, the Apache gunship helicopters, you know, like stuff that's going to start getting hit in U.S. ports. The war is going to be on your soil, and it's going to be asymmetrical. You're not going to see armed Iranian guard there, right? So the only option Trump is going to have is to nuke Iran. But at that, like, you're talking about the next 30 years of terrorist attacks, train derailments, sabotage on your power grid. And I mean, this could be all over the West. You know, like the Iranians, the IRGC, okay, and the Quds forces, okay, are pretty big. Okay, they're mostly in the air, but in their own area. But the IRGC does have a branch that reaches out to other groups, such as like Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff like that. And they do support these guys in the back. things. So they must have something like that in the United States. Uh, Maybe it's only 1,000 guys, but 1,000 guys running around cloak and dagger 007 style, blowing shit up, or it'll take you 10 years to catch them all. And every time they get away with an attack, it's thousands or billions of dollars worth of damage, and God knows how much loss of life. This is the next phase of the war, but I think they're going to do that. Like, the thing is you have to understand with the Iranians, you're going to have to earn your way there. Meaning they're going to have to do something so drastic in Iran that it triggers a full response. The Iranians respond in kind. You hit their desalination plants, they hit yours. You hit their fuel depots, they hit yours, right? They're doing the eye for an eye thing, to the extreme, right? So, and the thing is are they winning or losing? The problem is when people look at wars and they say who's winning, who's losing. Well, you have to look. It's like the way you win is you don't lose as much as the other guy. So nobody wins. Like, nobody in the Gulf states are winning right now. The United States is not winning. They're losing things. They're losing manpower. They're losing tools for the job, so to speak. They're losing people. So are the Iranians. Okay, the Iranians might be losing slightly more civilians. But if you look at the infrastructure cost that they're losing, which is very critical to them, versus what they're taking out. Like, again, taking out that Amazon data center was a fucking major hit economically to, I think it was Kuwait or UAE or whichever, maybe it was Saudi Arabia. And that seems where most of the focus is going, right? There's other Gulf states that are like, no, we're out. we can't survive this. We're out. But that said, the longer this goes on, the more likely there's going to be food shortages all across the Middle East. The Israelis are starting to lose their power grid. Can you imagine what it's like to lose the power grid in that kind of fucking heat? It's 30 degrees in the wintertime there. It's just crazy. It's so hot. So yes, there's going to be a lot of pain and suffering. And the Israelis, they cannot survive this. There's no way that they're going to survive this. And if it comes out that it was them that did the false flag on Cyprus, Israel will be fucking banished from there. If they don't leave, the Turks will push them out. Again, Turkey is about to go to war with Germany, like I said, and it's probably looks like now Israel is going to be the catalyst. So Turkey's probably going to turn on Israel in a way that again, because look, the Israelis are already talking about taking out the Turks. You don't. Like as soon as we're done with the Iranians, it looks like Turkey's the next problem. Again, these Zionists, okay, we're only going to take out 7 countries in 5 years back in 2009. Now it's like, okay, once we get the 7th one, well, we've got to find a new enemy. They're serial killers, right? They're the Israeli regime is absolutely fucking pure evil. They can't kill enough people on the planet. It's all they do, right? They're not defending themselves. They're creating more war. Again, it's part of the religion, being persecuted and all this. Like, they're their own worst enemy. You can't help these people. They're too brainwashed. But it doesn't really matter anyway, because they're not going to survive this for much longer. Like, look, tomorrow will be 12 days, okay? And Israel lost way more this time than they did in the last, right? Everybody in the region lost. The second you start seeing the Gulf states pull out, say, okay, well, the U.S. military bases are destroyed anyway. What's Trump going to do? Start bombing the Gulf states? You know what I mean? Like, look, the embassies are emptying out. Like you basically got helicopters trying to get people out of the embassies because they're surrounded by really angry mobs, right? Yeah, they're shooting people, right? So the embassies are also taking in drone attacks as well. These embassies can't, you can put people in the bunkers in the basement, but the rockets can go right into the bunkers. They've already proved this. The Iranians, again, if you listen to the Fox News type, I was like, the Iranians have no capabilities. Okay, where's the bunker? Okay, it's below the synagogue. Bang. They've already done this. They've already blown up a couple of synagogues with bunkers underneath. So the bunkers can't even stop, these things penetrate bunkers. Maybe not really, really deep bunkers, but they'll penetrate the bunkers. Now, Hezbollah They're holding off the IDF. The IDF is, in desperation, is trying to basically, do an air campaign against the West Bank and Lebanon and stuff like that. But even at that, they're going to fail at that because A, it's tying up too much resources. B, it's only a matter of time before the Israeli aircraft are targeted successfully on the ground by the Iranian rockets and the drones. Every aircraft, like the Israelis, only have 300 fighter jets. Most of them are not brand new. They only have like something like 7. Well, maybe they have more than that now, but they only had like something like 7 F-35s. That's not a lot. Most of those are going to get destroyed on the ground, down for maintenance. As soon as they're down for maintenance, trust me. There's going to be forward observers everywhere. There's going to be guys just on the top of buildings with binoculars. Okay, call up the Iranians. Yeah. The F-35s are in the hangars. It's hangar B, C, and 9. And whatever. When the Americans start bringing in those heavy lift aircraft, if you take out a C-5 Galaxy, okay, that is a big loss to the United States. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, like with the Ukraine war and stuff like that, is getting the weaponry over there, okay, is a huge logistics nightmare. Canada, we have something like 9 heavy lift C-17 and I forget how many C-130s we still have, but we might have like 20 of them or whatever it is. And people say that's not very much. You're right, it's not very much. But we have more lift capability than 90% of the countries on the planet. That's why in war, Canada is usually always logistics, contributes logistic-based stuff. Like maritime patrol and stuff like that. It's because it's where we have most of our money tied up, right? So we don't supply the tanks and the air defenses and stuff like that. But we can get your shit to the front of the line because we have the abilities, right? The Russians understand this. This is why they still have those IL-78s, 96s, and whatever. I think they have a couple of AN-224s, which I guess now would be the largest aircraft on the planet because the AN-225 got taken out. I think the Ukrainians still have the AN-224s. But these are huge. These are like C-5 Galaxy, AN-224. I don't know which one's bigger. But the AN-225, unfortunately, that got destroyed in the Ukrainian war. Like, that was the biggest aircraft in human history. And it got destroyed. 6 engines. Huge. Monstrous. The last time it landed in a foreign country was probably here in Canada. I don't know what we would have loaded up on it, but probably military stuff. That was a huge capability loss for the Ukrainians because it could, like that thing could move like tanks and all kinds of stuff, no problem. So the Iranians, if they've targeted helicopters, that's your forward support. That's the guys that are going to get I don't know how many of the Black Hawks, of the 6,000 or 9,000 Black Hawks or 10,000 Black Hawks that were made are still up in service. I'm sure a lot of them from the 1960s are no longer flying, right? CH-412s, basically the Huey, right? There was like 10,000 of those. Most of those are basically have been cannibalized for parts. There might be 5,000 of them left flying globally. We call ours the Griffin. We have like 130 or 80 of them still left flying, but we built like 140 of them. And they're going to be needing to be replaced. So the thing is that next year when we start hearing about the helicopter program, this is big news for Canada. Okay, so Canada, we're no good. We can't do anything according to Trump, whatever, and we can't build our own weapons and stuff like that. But Bombardier has been building this phenomenal airliner called the Globe 8000. It's the fastest. Basically, it travels at 0.98 Mach, right? It's the fastest executive jet on the planet right now. And we've been selling quite a few of them, but we also have smaller versions of it. Like there's the Americans have the Gulfstream, we have the Globe, right? And these are competing executive jets. But we also do other things with these, such as the Gripen, not to be confused with the Gripen fighter, but there's the Gripen, I think it's called the A6, aircraft electronic warfare surveillance aircraft that the Swedes use. It's basically on the 6500 version of that aircraft platform, and there's a possibility of making a replacement for our CP-140 Auroras out of that platform as well. And I think 3 have been ordered by other nations. And we're like, well, if we're building all this military equipment for other nations, and this platform can be used as a domestic, like some multi-billionaire wants to have a fly from Saudi Arabia to Toronto, he can do it in one flight. 8,000-mile range on the sucker. Okay, well, the Swedes want to do a maritime patrol. Okay, well, we'll put a radar on the top of the sucker. Okay, we want to hunt submarines? We'll do that. I thought they would have used the Kingfisher, the new Kingfisher's search and rescue aircraft. I thought for sure they were going to adapt that for, its medium lift capability. It's a search and rescue aircraft, twin engine. Things have great range because of the high aspect ratio of the. So they're probably not really heavy lift, but they're going to replace our Dash 7s, right? But I thought they would outfit those for submarine warfare because of the way the wing is and stuff like that. Maybe they will, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, we're going to be getting starting to build our own. And the thing is, that they're already in production, right? So hopefully we have these maritime patrol aircraft, electronic warfare and surveillance aircraft within the next year or so. That'd be awesome. An actual quick military procurement built in Canada, made by Canada, designed by Canada. Yeah. And look, we could use that for anti-drone warfare. That's going to have to become the statement of fact, is that we have to be able to take on these drones. After we are able to basically stop these drones, which look, all over the States, there's drones being... Remember that big drone alien invasion we had last year? Well, there's a light version going on of it again. And the thing is that people don't know where these drones are coming from. Are they sleeper cells? No one's going to ever tell you the truth from the government. Doesn't matter which government, right? But the point I'm making is that at some point, there's going to have to be some sort of an EMP weapon that can be used against these drones. They have some of it, but they don't have enough of it. If you're talking drone swarms of 1,000 drones coming in at you at once, you have to basically kill those dead in the sky. The light versions of it that are used in Ukraine right now, what the Russians have done is they went from drones to tether line, right? So the anti-tank weapons back in the day, think of the TOW missiles and stuff like that. They'd have this tether line that'd go out maybe 600 meters, about 1,800 feet, 2,000 feet, whatever it is. And it would be wire guided, okay? So you're wire guided. They do this with torpedoes and everything. And you can't jam those, right? As soon as there's like the Javelin, it's not wire guided. The Spike system, anti-tank system, it's not wire guided. These missiles fly out and whatever, you can jam them. Hence why I think the Iranians are holding back firing a lot of stuff at the aircraft carriers, because one of the things is if they jam all the missiles, it's a waste of missiles, right? You have to wait till the aircraft don't have the missiles come in so fast that they can't jam them, the warships can't jam them, because the warships' electronic warfare systems are more powerful than the missiles coming in, right? You have to fire something that's hard to lock on and jam, right? And if you could do some research on radar jamming, and missile evasion, you'll get the idea of what's reality and what's not, right? That's why the missiles, the more they get use of any type of missile, the more you realize their vulnerabilities, and they're really not as accurate as people think they are. Rockets are low tech, work no matter what kind of thing. They might not have the pinpoint accuracy, but they're close enough, might be good enough. Just build a bigger boom, you know what I mean? So anyway, I think that's all I got for today. We'll see what kind of craziness ensues. I'm thinking that you got another 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before they sink a carrier or all of them. I don't know. I like the Trump administration is going to escalate big time. I'm still going with the idea that the Iranians, we haven't seen anything yet. That they are like when they come out and they make their statement that like so far everything they said they were going to do, they've been doing. We're going to hit this. Okay, the next batch of missiles is going to do this. We're now going to use this. And it seems to hold track with what they're saying. I'm not saying they're telling us the truth on everything, because they probably don't even know what the battlefield damage truly is, other than from some satellite photos. You need guys on the ground digging the bodies out of the rubble to give you an accurate count. But they probably know that, okay, well, if there was anybody in that building, whoever's in that building is dead. And they know that, okay, for example, like the radar stations, by the time the radar operator and the targeting of the THAAD system realizes that the missiles are terminal, that they're in terminal homing, meaning they're going to hit us, you will not be able to run out of that booth, from that console fast enough to get out of it. You're dead. Like it's you fire the missile, you fire missile 1, missile 2. By the time you fire the third missile, you're past the point of no return. You can't run from this side of the console to the door before the missile is going to hit you, or make it, even if you get out the door, the blast pressure is going to vaporize you anyway. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't understand, like most people killed by artillery don't actually get directly hit. They're just within the blast pressure and their insides get liquefied from the concussion. Like there's people that have been killed in blast shelters. To find them, basically they're lying on the ground without a scratch on them. And that's what it is. It's the concussion that kills you because the pressure's so high. At best it pops eardrums and it fucks up your vision, and when it collapses your lungs. Maybe you can be resuscitated, but a lot of times it actually will liquefy your insides. That's how much blast pressure we're talking about, and this could be, hundreds of feet from the blast, right? So you got to factor that in. So I'll leave it at that because I got other things I want to do today. And it's horrible what's going on, guys. It really is. All this is for like stupidity. Like just because we have really fucking evil, stupid people on the planet, we got to get everybody killed so our GDP numbers can go up for the weapons industries. And again, the stock market stuff's all bullshit. The economic hits the United States is taking right now, like, trust me, you guys are already in a recession. Depression light. Like everywhere you're hearing, oh, we're not in a depression yet. Like, look, even guys like Jim Rickers, who I like and respect, but he's like, well, really, if you add up the cost of like goods and services, like an iPhone, the price of it's not going up very much. So we don't really have inflation because it's offset. But no, we do have lots of inflation because the cost of living is up. Okay, air travel in the States is down. Why? Because of the lack of tourism. You just lost 92,000 jobs. The month before, you lost 25,000 jobs. Sure, in a country of 40 million people, okay, that's not too bad. But you've already lost 10 million jobs under the Biden administration. You know what I mean? Like you guys are working on depression era level of stuff. And again, it's happening everywhere. What about Canada? Are we doing bad or are we doing good? Well, we're like a bouncing ball. We're doing good in some areas because of the stimulus, but stimulus without austerity is, just another time bomb. But we're doing the austerity. For example, Carney is, again, you can't do it quickly because you can't do austerity quickly. This is what people don't understand. One last point here. About 28,000 government workers are about to lose their jobs here in Canada. That's all he's already taken down, I think, 40,000. So this would be about 60, 70,000 people shrinking the government. But the problem is if you add up federal, provincial, and municipal and public works workers in Canada, it's about 4 million people. Now, the problem is under the Trudeau years, that's how he was growing the economy, was by hiring more government workers. You bring in temporary foreign workers to undercut the labor to get the GDP numbers high, but you also the stimulus is just print money and hire government workers, right? Which is not sustainable either. Carney's, again, there's so many things I don't like about Carney, and I know I don't go on enough about that, but I also got to give you, the real picture. So when you listen to these guys that are like, everything is just doom, 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 and I'm one of these guys, I also have to give you the good. Carney, what he's doing around the world, okay, it's 1 year, I guess now, since he's taken office. And in that 1 year's time, he's signed 12 trade deals confirmed. He's in a different country every fucking week. And again, it takes about 4 or 5 meetings to get the trade deals to go. So it takes like months to a year or two to get the trade deals to get a trade deal. So when you see him go somewhere and he comes back, like his first 2 trips to India, oh look, he came back empty-handed, because the trade deals, unlike the way Trump makes it, like you don't sign an executive order and have a trade deal. You're going to have to go, okay, let's have a meeting to see when the next meeting is, because we have to, here's the framework, here's the trade deal we want to do. You come up with some proposals, we'll hatch it out. It takes about 10 meetings, you know what I mean? And again, everybody being so simplistically minded that they don't understand that Carney is moving at lightning speed, but yet government can max move at the speed of smell. You know what I mean? That's what lightning speed is. Trump is going in reverse, destroying his own economy on purpose for the globalists, the bankers, all those people. He's doing it on purpose. Again, it's for the CBDCs, the Internet of Things, Palantir, Agenda 21, he's doing it for all those, the Great Reset. It's all a part of it. Trust me, Trump wants the Chinese social credit score system exactly the same way China does, right? China was just a trial balloon. Where do you think they got the technology? They got it from the West. And every country is on it, including mine. So again, it's horrible. But that said, the problem we have is we have to, up here in Canada, last long enough to outrun the collapse of the United States. Because when they go down, we go down, just as hard, because our economy is so hooked to the United States. But global trade is about to take a massive, massive hit. This is why I wish Carney would have spent more of a nationalist approach and say, okay, let's get these trade deals, but for every one trade deal we get, let's boom our own manufacturing here. And I think he's starting to see that, hence why, okay, yeah, something that we're already building here, let's expand on it. And rather than buying a surveillance aircraft from the United States when we're building a platform that's already doing this in our own country, let's just buy our own. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to start just doing that. Resurrect the Avro Aero 2.0. Because until we do, we have to become self-reliant. There's no way around it. The United States is losing power, and when they lose this war against Iran, and they will, they're not going to win. Even if they nuke the Irans, you're still going to lose, because the damage is being done every week is going to take a year to undo of damage, economic damage. That's how much these strategic reserves and oil rigs and stuff like that. Sure, you can get them back online after a few hits. Yeah, but it still takes a month or two. But you destroy everything and destroy the infrastructure that fixes the infrastructure. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, guys. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. We'll hope everybody be safe. We'll see what tomorrow's craziness. The second 12-day war. We're at the 11th day, so we'll see what the. So this is covering day 10. So tomorrow will cover day 11. We'll see what's changed. Whatever. Keep an eye on things, because again, unlike a lot of people where they report like the Trump cheerleaders, oh look at this, we're winning because this happened. Then he doesn't tell you the bad things, and then the anti-Trump people are just like, it's bad, but they don't tell you what's whatever. And then you got these Trump cheerleaders out there like, oh yeah, the helicopter bases are getting ready for to do close support, but they don't tell you the helicopter base got destroyed, right? And the other people, the helicopter base got destroyed, but they won't add, we can't confirm that yet. You know what I mean? And this is what I try to do. I only care about being accurate and telling you the truth. I'm not a cheerleader for one side of the. I wish none of this could happen. You know what I mean? But if you have Zionists running your government, this is always going to happen every single time. You can never vote for another Jewish person. Sorry if you're Jewish hearing this, but you can't, because if they don't try to send you to war for a neocon Greater Israel Project war, they're going to try to take you out because of racism and colonialism and toxic masculinity and progressivism. It doesn't matter what side. These people just seem to be radical on every stance they take. You can't vote for these people anymore. That's where we're at. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Be safe.